Welcome to Canute's Exploration, your topic in a podcast. Yes, another interesting episode. We'll be talking about adversities. Persons who have gone through adversities. We never stop in adversities. We keep going through it, right? Because that's life. Everyone would have had some form of adversity in his or her life. And it's important for us to understand it's not for us, it's for the other person who will need that encouragement. Sometimes, we are able to go through adversities more than the other person beside us. So my guest will be talking to us about her own adversities and how she plan or continue to help others to overcome adversities. We'll talk about her book as well eventually. I'll be talking to Amparo. I will ask her about that name when she gets into the studio. Let her in now and have this chit chat with her. Hey, how you doing? Nice to have you. Nice to have you. I'll talk about that name, but let's talk first about who are you really? Tell us about yourself professionally and
Yes.
personally.
Yes, happy to. Hi, everyone. My name is Amparo, and I am the founder of Astekah. And I created this program which combines themes under spirituality and activism and abuse consciousness and personal growth to be able to help women come out of experiences of abuse and toxicity and hardship to get back a lot of what often sort of dissipates or feels like it gets destroyed during that experience. So your worthiness, your joy, your feeling of badassery, your feeling of I belong here, I belong in the world, your feeling of I deserve safety. I help them to get that all back through Astekah.
Cool. You won't miss this question because this is a signature question from my podcast. Your childhood. You're being age 6, 8, 11. Talk to us.
Sorry, say that one more time.
Your childhood, right?
Oh,
When
yes.
growing up. Talk to us about growing up.
Yeah, so I grew up in South Central LA, which is considered a ghetto in the US. And so I grew up around a lot of criminal activity, a lot of drugs, a lot of harassment. So I couldn't go outside of my home for very many reasons outside of school or going to the grocery store because it was too dangerous. Um, I cared a lot about my community, and so even though I grew up in that level of hardship and seeing people struggle and hearing shootouts and seeing just a lot of hardship and arguing, I still wanted to be of service. I still wanted to be of help. So I had that experience outside my home. Inside my home, we were living in poverty. We were living in various levels of hardship internally as well. But I also grew up watching superhero cartoons. And so I credit that. I credit that with providing a really important and needed contrast between all of the hardship that I was witnessing or living, just a lot of witnessing it, with seeing some people, fictional people on screen, take those experiences and turn them into opportunities to help other people. So since I was a little kid, I wanted to be of service. I wanted to be a superhero. It wasn't a delusional thing of like, oh man, someday I'm going to be able to fly, but it put that in me that I wanted to be of service. I wanted to help people. I wanted to be a hero so that I could just help provide some level of support to the world.
You know, you
That's my
know,
childhood.
I'm from Jamaica and you are from Chile. But the similarity
Yeah.
that it relates to growing up, because I had gone through that, the poverty, the challenges within the inner city. I came from the ghetto as well. I grew up in the ghetto, and the gunshots and the murders, the gang warfare. We saw all of that as well. So it tells me, audience, as you listen to Canute's Exploration, your topic in the podcast, that it doesn't matter where in the world you're from. There are some similarities in terms of the
Yes.
adversities and the
Yes.
crime, right? But guess
Yeah.
what happened? We can pull through. We can.
Yeah.
And,
That's what I realized as well. I was introduced to a lot more of the world finally when I went off to college, and I realized there's so many similarities between our experiences, and there's hardship everywhere that you go, and people can be born into any country in the world and experience gangs and experience all sorts of levels of abuse, and and it inspired even more empathy. It inspired an even deeper feeling of connection
Yeah.
between myself and people of the world. Yeah.
Definitely. And I like when you talk about the superhero. Superman was my hero. And I know I couldn't fly, but Superman was to me a very powerful figure.
Yes.
Before I talk about your name, I must
Yeah.
tell my audience who are listening on Apple Podcasts, another audio podcast platform, that Canute Exploration understand the adversities, and we want to take the persons who have experienced these adversities to your home, for you to listen to them and know that, hey, you don't have to commit suicide. You don't have to do anything wrong, because you can get out of this. And my book, Soaring Through Turmoil, you will find it at on Amazon, right? Get a copy. It's my life story. Sounds just
Yeah.
like my guest here. Look, that name, Chile, but talk to us about your name. I mean, very interesting name.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I grew up in the US, not in Chile.
Oh,
But my name meaning Amparo or Azteca?
okay. Hmm.
So which one do you want me to clarify, my name or the name of my business?
The name, well, both of them. You know,
Okay.
one of them, please. Yes.
Yes. So my name is my grandmother's name on my father's side, and it means shelter or protection. So I love learning about people's names and the story behind it, because it often will tell me something about that person. So my name, if you can roll your R's, is pronounced Amparo, and if you can't, then it's Amparo. But it's a name that very hard for a lot of people to pronounce, and so I have so many nicknames,
Right.
but it means a lot to me whenever people do call me by my name and by my full name. And then in terms of Azteca, the word Azteca is part of the language that is native to Aztecs. Aztecs meaning the native tribe found all over regions like Mexico. And the word itself means people from Aztlan, and Aztlan is the ancestral home of the Aztecs. And so when I first found that word, it felt very important right off the bat. And then when I started to create this business, I immediately thought of that word, because this is about reclamation. This is
Wow.
about coming back to some of the original essence of what you are as a human being, whether you ever experience that in this lifetime or not. Because one of the things that I find it really important to tell people is that who you are is a very different person when you're experiencing hardship and adversity versus when you're experiencing safety. When you're in a state of safety, you are more expressive, you're more expansive, you're more your brain is in a calmer state, so you're able to access more thoughts beyond just survival based thinking, right? So who you are in safety is more actually who you are, because that's when your body is calmed down, your nervous system is calmed down, your body is calmed down, your brain is calmed down, so that you can express more of who you actually are, the fullness of who you actually are. And in hardship, it's all about survival. So everything that doesn't help you to immediately survive gets shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
So
shut
you're
them, right?
so you're a smaller expression of yourself.
Mhm.
So Azteca came from that, of helping people come back to the origin of who they are as a human being.
Yeah. I'm gonna laugh a bit. Let us laugh a bit, because you talk about nicknames
Yeah.
from your name. I'm just asking for three of them.
Okay. All right. So my first nickname, which was given to me before Amparo, is Estrellita, which is a Spanish word, and it means little star.
Okay.
And the story goes that my mom was pregnant with me, and she was going through a hard time, and she went outside, and she's a religious woman. So
Mhm.
she prayed to God to bring her a little star as she was staring at the sky. And so my name has been Estrellita my whole life. So that's one nickname.
Right.
And then variations of that. Another nickname is Starfish. So doesn't have anything to do with my name, but
All right.
I was a camp counselor in college for
Okay.
kids whose parents have cancer or had cancer, and so we wanted to create a very magical environment for those kids where they could completely forget about what they were going through, their own hardship, right? And so to maintain that magic, all the camp counselors, we wouldn't tell them our real names. We would give them some sort of nickname, and that's what they knew us as, and that's what we would call each other. And it really did contribute to the magic. So there's a whole group of people that don't know my name. They just know me as Starfish.
That,
and then and then one more because you asked for three. People love to slice up my name and then like attach things to it. So Amp is one nickname. Someone else called me Ammo. Someone else called me Emperor. someone someone else liked to call me Shelter because it's what Amparo means.
right,
So
right.
a lot of
Sounds like
nicknames.
the culture in Jamaica, right? You grew up in New York, you said, really, right?
What's that?
Where did you grow up? You were,
Oh,
yeah.
LA, Los Angeles.
Oh, you grew up in okay, fine. So there must be a lot of Jamaicans around you, right?
Yeah. I grew up I didn't grow up around them, but I met some Jamaicans afterwards when I went off to
Right.
college and beyond. Yeah.
Lovely. You know, I want to get into the meat of the matter a little
Yeah.
though, right? Because you have talked about your adversity a little, right? But can you tell us about the inspiration behind your company and what motivates you to create it? I think it has to do with the adversities. Talk to us.
Good guess. Yeah, so it was a combination of I'm a very service-oriented person. So anytime that I've come out of some level of difficulty, whether it was really small or really big, I've always used it to help other people pretty much immediately because it's a driving force for me. So that's a core part of who I am. Very protective, very service-oriented person. And then I've gone through a lot. So I grew up in poverty, I grew up around crime, I grew up with hardship inside the home. I had a wonderful few years in college and immediately after. And then I found myself in an abusive relationship afterwards, narcissistic abuse. And so it was abuse across the whole spectrum, but the most severe of it was mental. The least severe of it was physical because that's just not the type of abuse that I lived. To
Right.
my surprise, I didn't know this, but you can experience so much mental abuse that you can develop brain damage. I
Yeah,
didn't know this.
yeah,
So I thought brain trauma only came from physical impact, car crashes, someone hitting you in the head, boxing, football. That's what I thought.
yeah,
Did not know that these other things also cause brain trauma, PTSD, CPTSD, everything else.
yeah.
And I was rescued from this experience. I came out of it, and within about a week, had the experience of repressed memories coming to the surface of my psyche. And then very quickly, my internal world started to collapse as I realized what I had lived and the impact of it. I realized I couldn't make decisions past um, I couldn't make decisions. Like I couldn't decide whether to get out of bed or to get food or to get out of the house. I couldn't make decisions because I was stuck in a mental trap of there are no good options and I'm not allowed to want things for myself. There were a lot of mental traps like that inside of my brain. I couldn't conceptualize hours into the future, which is when I started to think, what's wrong with my brain? And I started to research it and I found out that that can cause brain trauma and that's a sign of brain trauma. And so I was in a really bad state. I had all these repressed memories coming out. I was screaming a lot from the psychological pressure of what was collapsing inside of me.
Yeah,
And so it was a very harsh coming out of this experience.
yeah,
But about 8 weeks later, I had the experience of feeling like I was a flower that had come back alive. Like I saw myself in the mirror again and I recognized who I was looking at for the first time in years. It was a very profound experience.
yeah.
And that was only like a little bit of a deep breath that I had during the experience.
Right.
I had PTSD. I had CPTSD. I had a lot of healing to go through. But in those in betweens, when I was able to say, okay, I climbed out of this latest period of hard healing from this experience,
Yeah,
then I would immediately turn it into I need to help other people. I need to turn this into something that's going to help other people because I realized it's rampant. It's realized most of the world doesn't understand what this is. Most of the world only thinks of physical abuse as abuse, and most of the world doesn't understand how violent and how impactful these other forms of abuse are. And that's even in situations where people do acknowledge that even physical abuse is harmful and unacceptable, right? There are whole groups of people and factions of society that don't even acknowledge that, right?
right, right.
And so it was those experiences that then inspired me, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
to help other people. And I did. I helped people one on one. I helped people as a coach. I helped people as a spiritual healer. But then I arrived to a point where I realized it's a really big problem beyond
Yeah.
individual relationships. People experiencing abuse at work, people experiencing abuse because of the legal system, people
Yeah.
experiencing abuse because of our other systems. They have they're met with very similar tactics, if not the same tactics,
Lovely.
of gaslighting and invalidation, breadcrumbing, and making you go crazy over like not having good choices. And so I
Yeah.
realized there's so many more people
I,
that
I,
need help.
I like how you contextualize abuse. It's very interesting how you did that, because you're given the idea that abuse is so widespread,
Yeah.
even in customer service, the way governments treat the citizen, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
therefore you might not see it as physical, sexual abuse and so on, but in effect it's emotional abuse, and it's
Yes.
also to you would have experienced that this in the United States, where in the United States and even the
Yeah.
Caribbean, where you have scam calls coming in and wake you up in the night. That's abuse. Right.
Yes, that can be classified as abuse, right? So it's one of the things that I realize is if you if you look at it as a chart, so all the different tactics that one experiences one on one when you're targeted by someone in a romantic relationship, which I don't qualify it as that, it's
Okay.
the exact same tactics that you can experience from other parts of society, whether
Sure.
it's your manager or a scam caller or a
Yeah.
government official or a police officer,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And part of the reason why, it's not the whole reason, but part of the reason why is because that person that's abusing their partner at home
Yeah.
is also a person of society.
Oh
So the
yeah.
same way that they treat that person, they're going to do that to other people. That's part of the reason why. And so I was like, I have to do something about this. I
Interesting.
have to help people.
Interesting. Your journey. We all have a journey. We start as a psychologist. I would have noted that the lifespan experience that we have started at zero, and yes, we said it in at death, right? But it's a journey.
Yeah.
The adversity, then the success, the overcoming of the adversity. So you have had a journey, right?
Yeah.
And I'd like to talk to you about this journey that you have had, and the message that that you would have that actually shaped that journey that you have.
Yeah. Happy to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um yeah, my life has been in many ways very beautiful, and it's been in many ways very challenging and very painful.
Yeah.
Um, but I've had a lot of reasons to be very appreciative of the people in my life, of the experiences,
Mhm.
of the ability to get to know more parts of the world, the ability to have a life that I fully recognize is a blessing in many ways that my life could have turned out so differently. Like I am on a trajectory right now of more and more joy, more and more peace, more and more calm. And my life could have headed in a very different direction if, for example, I hadn't been saved, because at that point I was dying. That's why I was saved. And so I have always been someone who, again, has taken those experiences in my own personal life and turned them into something that will be of some level of benefit to someone else, even if it's just me as a friend. As a friend, when I love someone
Yeah.
very deeply, very profoundly. You know, I'm very protective of them. I'm very nurturing of them. I'm very defensive of them. And so that I think that is always the case,
Yeah.
but I think that there's levels of intentionality that can vary in that, right? So I'm very intentional about healing from my experiences, growing from challenging experiences, developing a better relationship with myself, and having all of those experiences impact how I show up in the world. And so this person here is a very different person than I was
Yeah.
even 6 months ago,
No.
because I'm so intentional about that, because it's important. One of the things that I saw a lot growing up was a lot of stuckness, a
Yeah.
lot of people being really depressed and just in a state of a lot of unhappiness, but
Yeah.
also feeling like they had no choice, feeling like they were stuck, and saying a lot of the phrase "no se puede," which
Yeah.
means it can't be done. That's what that means. I heard that phrase
Yeah.
over and over and over again.
Mhm.
So it put inside of me this desire to not do that to myself. And
Yeah.
I did experience that. I experienced that in hardship or in abuse. And it was very striking to me that the very fate that I had tried to escape, I found myself back into. But
Oh,
since escaping, that's been my mantra again of not being in that space of growth and growth and growth, because being stuck is not really living.
yeah.
You don't really feel alive, you feel numb.
Yeah.
And the point of life is to live, right? That's the point of life, is to live, to grow, to love, to
Yeah.
explore, to experience yourself. That's the point of it. And we can get that back. It's harder to experience when you are in the middle of poverty and oppression and abuse. It's harder,
Yeah.
but it's not impossible. And when you can have that experience, you have a huge physiological impact and psychological impact on yourself that
Right.
then makes it more possible to have access to other behavior,
Mhm.
actions, results. So, one of the really important things that I realized from this is that if I can help people get back into themselves, get back to themselves, get back the core essence of themselves, get back the remembrance of this is who you actually are. This is this person that you've been just being to survive. That's only a small portion of who you are. Who you actually are is this wonderful, wondrous, worthy, joyful, badass, service oriented human being. This is who you actually are, impactful, transformative. Then they can then go back into their lives and have a very different experience in their own lives.
So you're listening to Canute's Exploration, your topic in the podcast. Dr. Canute White. Talking to a very important guest, Amparo. Hey, see, I tend to call you a nickname there. All right.
That's all right.
Yeah, that's good. What advice would you give? No, you perhaps have alluded to it. What advice would you give to individuals? Those persons are among us who are
Yeah.
seeking to embark on their own journey. Healing.
Yeah.
You talk about self-discovery.
Yeah.
Talk to them.
Yeah. So one of the things that I like to tell people is you're a survivor. Yeah, you're a survivor. So you've made it through all these experiences. Not sure if you're still here.
Very good.
Okay, okay. You've made it through all these experiences because you're a survivor, because you're an adapter, because you have the skill sets that were necessary for you to survive. Those same skill sets, those same parts of you can then be used to help you to climb out of this, to heal, to remind yourself of who you actually are, to create a much better life, to build and rebuild and build and rebuild, build and rebuild, and to bravely go into yourself and challenge those parts of yourself that maybe they helped you to survive, but maybe those very parts will keep you stuck, prevent you from moving from this level to the next level. But you can do it. And it's evidenced by the fact that you survived. So, one of the things that you forget when you're going through hardship after hardship after hardship after hardship, you forget about your own strength. It's very easy to do. And so that's one of the things that I like to tell people. Another thing that I like to tell people, even if you don't forget your strength, you forget your joy. You forget what it's like to be a very light person, right? And so to that, I like to help people to remember moments of safety,
Yeah.
even if they didn't have an extended period of time of safety, moments of safety. That time that you were talking with friends and you just were laughing so hard that you were on the floor crying because you were laughing so hard, What did that feel like? Or that time that you went to the beach and you were by yourself and you were staring at the ocean waves and it was just you with the water, you with Mother Earth. How did that feel? And I pull people back into those states so that they can remember who they actually are, so that they can remember that they can be that person again and they can build and rebuild. They
Yeah.
can do it.
Yeah. You talk about forgetting about your strength. That's very powerful because a lot of times we do, right? There's this inner strength that we have, right? And even outer strength, so to speak, physical strength. But we just forget about it because of the challenges that we are facing, because of
Yeah.
the adversities, so self-recovery, very critical. You know,
Yeah.
I saw something somewhere, energetic abolitionist. Ah, you laugh. You know I'm researching you. Yeah, I always look beyond and research my guest. Right?
I love that.
What this means. Talk to me.
Yes. So first of all, the context. This is what I currently have on my Instagram profile.
Okay.
And it's because I was trying to come up with a title that really fit in a very a short title that fit what it is that I actually do, right? The core of it. And I realized that I came up with this term energetic abolitionist because firstly I realized that when you are stuck in programming that society sort of bestows upon all of us, when you're stuck in certain programming that says I have to be a very small version of myself in order to survive, or that it's perpetuates the thinking within you that you're stuck and you have no choice, you can feel like you're constrained, right? Or if you're stuck in poverty or if you're stuck in oppression. There are a lot of experiences in our modern day life that act as shackled constraints without something physical being present there. And so I realize that what I do and that I want to do is to be able to help pull people out of these really heavy experiences. But again, speaking to the energetic component of it,
Right.
right? So pulling someone up from a really heavy emotional state where you're in a really depressed state because you've gone through so much hardship and you have the experience of such little material help, and you have all these systems that are set up in such a way that they don't help you, even if it seems like these systems help you, right? You can feel very stuck in a way that is beyond just like a light way of saying that statement. You can feel really chained, enslaved to these experiences. And
Right.
so, in helping someone climb out of these experiences, then they can have a completely different reality. They can have a completely different internal life. They can have a completely different external life.
Right.
And once someone is able to do that, once someone is able to come out of that experience of hardship and hardship and hardship, and I am not a good person and I'm not worthy, and all of that really, really, really heavy stuff, and nothing is ever going to change, and no one's going to help me, no one's going to love me, all that really heavy stuff that is so self-perpetuating, and it sort of keeps you there unless it's challenged. When someone can be pulled out of that and assisted out of that, then they can remember what it's like to feel alive again. They can remember what it's like to feel free again. I think there is this I think there's this concept that our modern day life is so free, it's so fantastic. But actually, when we look around, our systems, our legal systems, our educational systems,
Right.
in many ways, they perpetuate really heavy, severe experiences of lack of freedom in a
Right.
very tangible way.
Right.
And that's separate from those individual experiences that one can have where you feel like there's no way to get out of this experience of hardship, this experience of just internal hell that I want to be able to help people out of.
Good. I want you to spend um, perhaps 2 minutes and tell me a little about your business before we go on to your book.
Yeah, happy to. I don't have a book yet, but happy
Oh,
to talk about my workbook if that's what you meant.
yeah.
So Astekah combines meditations and workbooks and coaching and group coaching to be able to help people go through that experience of healing from toxicity and abuse and hardship, so that they can remember that they're worthy. They can remember that they are not this small person who is silent and second guesses herself all the time. So this is one of my workbooks that I created. I called it Reclaim Your Worthiness. And it's a combination of ritualistic exercises, including writing exercises, including exercises that have you go out into the world, including reflective exercises, to help you to remember that you are inherently a worthy human being.
Okay. So this
Yeah.
workbook, it's electronic and hard copy.
It's electronic. Good question. It's
Oh,
electronic.
great electronic. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And those of you listening to Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast will not be able to see unless you go on YouTube, our YouTube channel. Remember to share, subscribe, and comment. You will be able to see what the surface, what it looks like on the electronic platform. Her book, Reclaim Your Worthiness. Very, very important for you to get a copy and to see what's going on. But you know, as I said, I'm a researcher. I did a lot of research. So there are people who are saying things about you, good things, positive things. And you talk earlier on about self-talk in terms of getting self-recover. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And people are saying things about you, and I'd like you to focus a bit on some other things. I want you to read a few of them, three of them.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So this is from a good friend, Anjali, who also brought me into her organization to run a workshop. She said, Amparo's friendship, thoughtfulness, and unyielding desire to learn and positive impact wherever she goes are truly commendable. I wholeheartedly offer my highest recommendation. So
Okay.
this was after a workshop. Actually, not. It wasn't a workshop. It was a panel. So it was
Okay.
a panel discussion of careers in healthcare, and so I came in as a sort of alternative path
Mm.
of coaching versus becoming an actual practitioner.
Right.
And I shared about my experience, which is what led to my creating my business itself. It was
Okay.
a really good experience.
All right. This one now. Go ahead.
Yeah. So there's another one of my friends who also brought me into her
Right.
organization, Sike, Ayosike. She said, if you're looking for a self-care professional that will deliver quality content with ease and grace to a diverse audience, you should definitely consider Amparo. She was wonderful. So she brought me into organization to run a sort of um, a workshop that was a combination of self-care and activism for a group of youth. And the reason why I did that is because in our communities, when you grow up in a community that is living in poverty, self-care is the last thing on our mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're just thinking about surviving. But if you don't do those things, then it sort of, again, it perpetuates the same problems. It perpetuates the same situations. And then one of the things that I realized in coming out of abuse
All right.
is that living as a person in society, just living as a person in society,
All right.
mirrors in many uncomfortable ways the experience of living in an abusive relationship
All right.
in
All right.
so many ways, including in an abusive relationship, you're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
You increasingly don't have time for self-care, but in an abusive relationship, that's on purpose.
Yeah.
Your abuser wants you, whether they tell you or not, they
Yeah.
want your life to revolve around them. It gives them a sense of power and control over you, right? And so in that situation, your entire life, your entire mind,
Yeah.
your even your body,
Yeah.
right? It revolves around what works for your abuser.
All right.
And in society, especially in communities that are experiencing hardship, you experience that too, right? Your bodies don't really belong to you, they belong to the companies that you work for,
Right. Right.
right? You are so tired because you're working 2, 3 jobs. And so, even if you're not working 2, 3 jobs, you're probably being exploited at that one job that you're working at, and you're probably being treated without respect, right?
Yeah.
That's very common in the world of work is you just make do and you keep going even if you're throwing up because you hate what you do. You
Yeah.
keep going, right? And then you're taught these things from society like hard work, it gets you everything that you want. No, it doesn't.
Right. Right.
How many people who grow up in hoods and in poor communities, they're working hard all the time,
Oh yeah.
but that doesn't lead to anything. So that says that that statement is false. If it's not always true, then it's false, right? And so I lost my train of thought.
That's all right. No, that's all right. You see, we talk about flow. I think called flow when you're so enticed in what you're doing,
Yeah.
saying, right? Yeah, yeah, that's all right. No, but you had made some good points there, and you know it's interesting. And I'm sure that my audience will understand what you're saying and take with them this sort of a attitude of self recovery. right?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is
As
yeah.
just to add one more bit,
Mm,
as a form of almost resistance
mm,
to anything that would want you to not take care of yourself, right?
right, right.
I remembered that I was talking about that workshop that I really wanted to impart people. You've been taught that taking care of yourself is weak or unnecessary,
Mhm.
or that it's only for people who are not in your situation.
Right.
No, taking care of yourself is so badass.
Mhm, mhm.
It's so important and it has such a huge impact on you. So see it as a form of activism. See
Yeah.
it as a form of lifting yourselves up and your community up in
Right.
this environment of constant hardship. And then this is the impact that it has, because it does. It has a
Right.
huge impact. Yeah.
Hey, where do we get this book? This that's critical. Where do
On my website. So if somebody goes to astekah.com, which is spelled Astekah,
right? Mhm.
they'll see in the navigational menu products. You click on products and then you click on workbooks, and then they'll see that image that you currently see on the video screen.
Mhm.
And so I have that workbook available in English and in Spanish. That's my goal, is to always produce books in English and in Spanish, because I'm well versed enough in both of those that I can. More workbooks will be coming out, but for now, Reclaim Your Worthiness is the workbook that they'll have access to.
Great. Before I leave you,
Yeah.
I speak patois. Or
Mm.
go on, man, what you say? What's going on? What are you saying? You know, but I want you to tell me something in Spanish and and translate that for us before we leave.
Yeah, so I can tell you one of my favorite phrases.
Right.
It's a saying. It's a saying that I grew up with. No hay mal que por bien no venga. So what that means literally is there's nothing bad that you can go through that something good won't come out of it. So it's like the saying, every what is it? Every gray cloud has a silver lining, or something like that. It's something that was very important for me to remember, is that no matter what I went through, no matter what other people go through, the most horrendous things, it's always possible. It's not guaranteed, but it's always possible for something good to arise out of it for themselves and for other people.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that as well. Hey, it's nice talking to you. I have
Yeah,
learned
as well.
a lot, and I'm encouraged, and my audience will be encouraged, just as you are encouraged to impart to us your overcoming method in terms of your adversity. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.